Hey, this is Sunday Conversations. This is episode 4 with Zach Godwin from Sparing. I wanted to chat with Zach because Old Dreams just came out a little over a week ago. So I thought it'd be fun for us to take a deeper dive into the EP, discuss songwriting, the artwork, and then Zach has an interesting perspective on emo and pop punk in our youth, and I also share that perspective. So that would be fun to for us to talk about that as well. Starting Sparing and talk about hardcore as well. Zach, can you introduce yourself? Give a quick backstory, about yourself, what you do, and how you got into hardcore.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on. Super cool to be on one of these conversations. My name is Zach Godwin, and I currently live in Surf City, North Carolina, which is about 30 minutes from Wilmington, a couple hours from Raleigh. Live here with my wife, Katie, and I work at, me and my dad run a surf shop called 50 South in Surf City. So, surfboards, skateboards, rentals, stuff like that, and a little bit of retail. So, do vocals in Sparing, and all of us are in another band called 13th, and I do guitar in that. Everyone else in the band lives in Raleigh, and I kind of make the commute to Raleigh to practice and meet up for shows and all that good stuff. But kind of half remote, but put as much effort as I can from a distance.
Yeah. How did y'all meet? Have y'all known each other for quite a while now? Or?
Yeah, like me and Burge. So Zach Burge, everyone calls me Godwin and calls him Burge because we have the same name. But so Burge and me went to high school together. We've known each other forever. And me and him have been in bands together pretty much as long as I've been in bands. So like when we were both like 15, we were playing like Under Oath style, metalcore stuff together. And, progressed into like Ghost Inside style hardcore, and then kind of split off. And then we've lived together in the past and stuff. So me and Burge have been best friends since like day one for music. And he's always been my like constant. Everyone else in the band, like Terry and Cam, they've all been in like bands that we would play with. So we would just like share the stage together, but never played together in a band until 13th. So we just kind of got together one day. I don't really know who started it. I think it was Cam and Burge just wanted to like get together and jam, and one thing led to another, and that's how 13th started. So it's been great. I mean, probably the most like successful like little hardcore band I've been in. We've tried a bunch. Burge has been in more successful ones than that, but it's just it's fun to just play music that people like, and hang out with my friends, and that's all I really look for.
Yeah. How did you become introduced to this type of music? That kind of, what was your gateway into discovering punk and hardcore?
Yeah, it's tough to say like what the like origin of it was. It's like as far back as I remember, like playing guitar. When you're so young, you kind of get introduced to music in a weird way. It's usually like what your parents listen to, or what your friends listen to. So like early on, it would be like classic rock stuff, like AC/DC and Led Zeppelin and stuff like that, Beatles. And it kind of like the more people you meet growing through school, the more you get introduced to things. So like middle school, it was more like you want to rebel, so you're listening to like Slipknot and like Cannibal Corpse and like crazy stuff like that. But in high school, I think the first like band that like clicked with me when it came to like hardcore was Have Heart. And I feel like that's like most people's story my age. Like Have Heart was like their first like bridge to like knowing that there's a whole nother world out there. Because up until that point, it was like mostly just metal stuff. But Have Heart really like opened my eyes up to like digging into, okay, what are the influences of what I listen to? And, we would me and my brother would listen to like the Misfits and Nirvana and stuff growing up. So like, we always liked punk music, but we didn't know what it really was. You know what I mean? So like,
Right.
I guess like Have Heart got me into hardcore, but I'd been listening to stuff like that forever and I just didn't know it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I have a similar experience as well, but I'm interested how you came across Have Heart. I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I don't really remember. I think it was more or less I got so Zach Burge, the bass player of Sparing, he got me into straight edge at the time, and I think there was just you didn't have too many edge bands like in the forefront in the late 2000s. It was like cheesy bands like Recon and like Life Ruiner, and then it was like Have Heart, and that's when I found Bridge 9 and just got obsessed. So it was more like I found the label, like I found Bridge 9 and dug into everything. And like it was like Have Heart, Give Up the Ghost or American Nightmare and Lemuria and like other bands that weren't necessarily heavy, but like I just started diving into just the discography of a Bridge 9. And no one else in my little town listened to that sort of thing. You know what I mean? So you kind of feel like you're just like experiencing these things for the first time and no one else knows about this. And it just felt special to me. You know what I mean? And I think it just like what stuck with me about like punk and hardcore, to this day, you know what I mean? Where, as you know, most people like who was straight edge at the time might not be anymore, but like I've held on because of like how much it meant to me in those like formative years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think I'm not sure if Bridge 9 gets talked about as much anymore, or is like a good reference point. And maybe it is. I just haven't heard it in my conversations. But I would say that they are a very important label, because similar to you, that was kind of my gateway label into discovering hardcore. I think I picked up, I'm trying to remember, like, what was that introduction? I think it was at Warped Tour, and I think I got like a compilation CD from them. So I think that must have been it. I know I for sure got like a Have Heart CD and a Verse CD, like one Warped Tour. Like I bought it and I would like listen to that all the time. But yeah, anyway, the Have Heart, Verse, Defeater were like the big three at the time, I would say, like late
Defeater
2000s.
was big. Yeah, Defeater was definitely big. And I always forget like how big they really were. Like Red, White, and the Blues, like that.
Yeah.
And like the Traveler stuff, like just that took over for me. And I think it was just they were still like considered hardcore. I don't know if people would really like see them in that same light, but like for me at the time, I saw them in the same vein as like a Have Heart or a band like that. I think hardcore has definitely changed a lot since then with like Triple B and stuff kind of being more. It's definitely, I don't know, it's just different now.
It was a weird time, I would say. I think a lot of people can agree on that, like the late 2000s era. And then entering like the early 2010s, where kind of Trapped Under Ice kind of changed everything from.
I think that's what it was. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah.
But the late 2000s period was definitely interesting, and it's kind of cool to look back on that time and see how it's evolved since then, and look at it now.
Yeah, I think I got into it a little late. I think like Have Heart was on the way out when I was like really like getting into them for the first time. So like the first like vinyl I ever bought was the live record, their last one on Edge Day.
Right.
So like that was like my first like vinyl purchase.
Yeah.
And, I still have it, and it's awesome. It's like Carolina Blue or something variant. But it's still super special to me. So I never got to see them live though, which just sucks. But still an important band to me, and like kind of shaped my viewpoint on everything now.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny that last show Because same as you, I never saw them. Because I got into them, I would say around 2010, which was like just a year after they had broken up. I think their last show was Edge Day, like 2009, if I'm not mistaken.
They played some show in Raleigh, and it was like, hey, everyone, you going to the Have Heart show at the brewery? And I'm like, nah, man. I'm like 16. I can't,
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. So it's funny. We both like just missed them, but they've had like a huge impact on both of us. And so when they came back, a couple of years ago, I made sure I went to go see them, and it was like one of the best shows I've experienced. Because I remember watching that last show like video on YouTube, and I would watch it like a lot when I was like a kid or like a teenager. And I was like, man, I wonder how it would have been to be there. And I think I've experienced that, but like times like 2 or like 3, because the crowd was like much bigger at like the reunion shows, and it was just so cool to see. But yeah, I guess going off of hardcore and Have Heart and Bridge 9 and everything, I thought it was gonna be fun to go a little bit deeper on like Drive-Thru Records, which is, it sounds kind of funny in contrast, but also an important label. Yeah.
Equally as important to
definitely.
To Sparing, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I was going through going on like interviews and emails with you to make sure that I had like a good list of points I wanted to hit. And I went back to our first email thread when we started talking, and you had referenced the Early November, Hey Mercedes, and Drive-Thru. And I, since the beginning, those are like, big bands that I wanted Sunday Drive to kind of, have in that style. So in the beginning, I was going definitely for like an alternative rock / emo sound. At the time I started it, those bands were like not really happening as far as like sonically. And so I never had like a band like reference that in my emails. And so Sparing came along, and I was like, I definitely have to check this out. Like, it's finally happening.
It's finally here.
I mean, obviously Sunday Drive is the Early November song. So like, it was just like really cool for me to like see that in the emo coming to the SDR emo. But anyway, what is it about these bands that inspired Sparing? And do you think there's a room for sound like this in today's music, given like the sound kind of faded out a while ago?
Yeah, I definitely think it is. Yeah. I mean, to this day, the best show I've ever been to was 2010, and it was a Copeland tour. I don't know if you ever listened to Copeland, but a Copeland tour. But on the tour was I Can Make a Mess Like Nobody's Business, which is Ace's band, and it was Personnel, which is the starting line. Yeah, Kenny's band. Yeah. And at the time, like, I didn't really know those guys, 2010, and they've been around for 10 years at that point. And I never really knew them as the people. I might have heard, some of their songs before, and they blew me away. And I just like fell in love with that. And it again, changed how I think about music from that point on. But for like going back to their bands, like it's just the energy they bring. It's different than hardcore. It's not as like heavy per se, but there's just as much aggression and energy in their voice, in the guitars, even if they're stripped back and like clean. It's just, they bring that kind of raw feel that you want in music, and you can just like believe in what they're saying. You know what I mean? So Absolutely. Like, to me, it's not like a gimmick, they weren't like, at that time, like there was a lot of bands that were like just riding the gimmick and MySpace. And this is like, they were just separated differently. And that's just what I wanted to be, that's what I just saw those bands as like a good blueprint for what Sparing could be, and take influence from just like what I know worked at one time. You know what I mean? It might not have been working now. because kind of like the balance and composure era kind of came in, and this style kind of faded away. But like, there's always that at the root of it. You know what I mean? And you can kind of see it. I definitely feel a wave coming of this style kind of coming back into the forefront of punk music, and I'm just kind of here for the ride a little bit. You know what I mean? I'm just ready for it. And I just feel like my strong suits as a musician have always been kind of in that lighthearted range. And, you know, while it's hitting, I'm just going to keep going for it. You know?
Yeah. I think it's funny too, that your introduction was, from that Copeland show, like not discovering the Early November or the Starting Line first, but I Can Make a Mess and Personnel, which are two bands that I wish I could have seen. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to, but those are like, I really love both of those projects, especially all of their records, I would say, but I have like all the I Can Make a Mess stuff that's available on vinyl. And I recently got the Personnel record. I think it just got repressed recently.
Yeah.
So good. But I think both of those projects are very underrated, because it's very much still those like Early November Starting Line type of music, but it's pushed a little bit further than I guess what, the music that they're writing at the time. I mean, especially Personnel. Like I remember listening to an interview with Kenny, and he was talking about starting that project because he discovered Drive Like Jehu, and he wanted to start like a very like post-hardcore type of like noise band like that. And the result was like obviously really cool. I'm sure that was like cool to see live too.
Yeah, I mean, going back to listening to it now, after knowing the Starting Line for the last 10 years, you can undefinitely tell that it's him. You know what I mean? I mean, it doesn't sound too far off from a Starting Line record to me. Not the first one, but whichever one has the movie artwork on it. That one, it kind of sounds
based
like
on
that.
A true story.
Yeah. So like you can still tell his musicianship and craftsmanship over those songs, even if it's not the Starting Line. Same with Ace. I mean, everything he's in is got that sound. I don't know. I wish I could just take both of those guys' brains and just like write some sparing with it.
Yeah. I mean, there is, you kind of hear this often, but like there is something in the water in like New Jersey, and same can be said in Philly or Pennsylvania around that time. But yeah, both of those bands are amazing, and I am excited to see other bands start to, kind of take those influences and have them in their music. Because I think a lot, like I'm not asking for like a repetition of the sound, but I think taking that influence and going somewhere new with it can be exciting, which I kind of think that Sparing accomplished, and we can talk about that as well.
Yeah, I definitely feel there's definitely that sound coming back, and it's coming back in like multiple genres. Like you definitely feel this kind of momentum for bands like the new Kenny Hoopla and like Machine Gun Kelly and like Willow Smith. Like that sound is back, but that's more like classic pop punk, kind of very Travis Barker inspired, like Blink sounding. So I think like if that's happening in pop radio, it's only a matter of time before bands like Early November and stuff start sprouting up, because they were going against the grain for like Fall Out Boy and stuff that was out at the time then. So yeah, I mean, looks promising to me. I'm excited.
Yeah, same here. And the thing was also with those bands is that they were kind of proud of like emo at the time when they were recording it, because it was like right before emo would like hit and was like super mainstream, like My Chemical Romance and Fall Out Boy, like you said.
Yeah.
But like they still were kind of referencing and like stuck to like that 90s emo sound, which was, it's just like cool to see them like stick to their roots. I mean, I think personally they should have been like mainstream because they're like really good. But yeah, I think it was kind of cool to see them kind of, stay true to and keep like all of their, DIY like punk ethos, even though they're at a bigger stage, at the time.
For sure.
But, we kind of mentioned Sparing, taking that influence. I thought it was interesting to go back and listen to the demo. So I listened to that this morning, actually. And at the time, I believe it was a solo project.
Yeah.
And I think you released that in 2019, so a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
How is it writing those songs, and how has it been different, going from a solo project to a full band now?
Yeah, I mean, those songs are they're hard for me to listen back to. I still like them, but they sound so like I could have done so much more. But so like Sparing started as a solo project, and it was really just like a project for me to kind of push myself as a musician. I had never written a full song all the way through from beginning to end by myself, because I've been in bands with everyone since the beginning. My cat scratching at the door, like I told you. And I just wanted to try to like push myself to write a song. That was the start of it. And my life was way different at the time. Like I had just, I think I just met my wife, and I was living like at the beach. I had an RV. Like I just had a camper that I had like refurbished, and I was living in that. And I like had a desk and my music, and that was it. And when I listen back to those songs, I definitely feel that time in my life. But I was, when you're like sitting there with the drum machine, which is essentially what I was doing, you don't really know like, okay, does this part need to groove longer? Does this part need to like be shorter? Should I change it up here? You don't get that kind of immediate reaction with a real drummer or someone in front of you that, to bounce an idea off of. So like that's been like the number one thing that's helped me with these Sparing songs. And honestly, it hasn't really changed. The process hasn't really changed a bunch. I've just maybe gotten better at doing it the way that I initially was, just because I'm still so far away. So I still write predominantly alone, and just send voice memos and stuff back and forth. But the times that we did get together with the band, some of the parts stuck on the new record. I mean, like a lead that Terry wrote, that's on the record. He played it one time, and I just had it on my phone, like a video of him doing it. And he was just riffing, and I copied it and I put it on the record. And then I was able to change up one spot. I think it was like a chorus. I just completely rewrote it with the guys, and that made it on the record too. So that's the biggest difference between a band and just me, is just being able to get that feedback right away.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. I would say for sure that having people to reference with anything, and not just music, but whatever that you're working on, being able to, go to someone and ask for their feedback, and where it can be constructive, is like always beneficial. It's always like nice to have a second set of eyes, or in your case, ears.
Yeah, it helps out so much. Like you don't really know how beneficial it is until you do it you play a new song for the first time in front of someone else, and you just hear it totally different.
Yeah, exactly. But how, I guess from the demo to now, as far as like recording everything, how are you doing that? For the demo, did you play all that yourself with just like a drum machine? And then how is it now going? I'm assuming y'all went in the studio and like did it all together.
Yeah. So the first record, both the demo and the EP, we went to Jose Gonzalez in Sanford. Me and Jose, we went to high school together. He's a little bit younger than I am, and has always been into recording music. And I'd recorded bands with him throughout the years, and he just like got better and better and better and better. And so the first record is the demo is me and a drum machine. But I played I recorded most of it in the camper, in the RV that I was living in. And then I went to him and we put we changed the drum beats together. So it's very simple. And I wish there was live drums on that demo, because I feel like the parts that I think are lacking is just kind of the cymbals aren't as energetic and, little things that could have been fuller, but that's why it just wasn't a real drum. But the Old Dreams EP, we did it during COVID. So it was January of this year, and I went down to Sanford and got an Airbnb and just hung out with Jose for a week. And so on the record at the time, Burge, our bass player, he got COVID. So like he couldn't be on the record. So on the record, it's just me and Joe, the drummer. And it was just me and Jose grinding every day. I think there's a video of it, and it's like just me, him, and his dog. And we just hung out every day and just kind of pieced the thing together. Just tons of layers on the guitars, a lot of fuzz pedal. And Joe showed up and just crushed it on the kit. I don't think I think we might have practiced one time together before. And
oh wow.
We just kind of he'd listened to the songs, but we just we had a day before we were kind of set the kit up and did some pre-pro, and we ran through the set. And then the next day he just basically one-taked it and literally crushed it. So Joe is the reason why that record sounds as like as on point as it does. It's because the drums are like super
powerful. Great drummer.
It's a huge thing. Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah. He played like black metal and crazy tech death stuff. So he's like, this is simple to him.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see him play these songs live, because usually he's blasting or doing something crazy. So he's going to have a lot of fun just, sitting back a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I was reading back through the interview you did with Resonating, and you mentioned that Lush was like a good first single because of the melody, which I definitely agree with. But you also mentioned Terry, who kind of helps, create that catchiness that you hear in the song, which I also agree on. And I think, for those who don't know, Terry also sings in 13th. He's the vocalist of that hardcore band. But how did the initial conversation come up to have Terry sing on the album? And I mean, it's a very different style, going from a hardcore band to this, and he pulls them both off very well. So like, I'm interested to hear how that went.
Yeah. I mean, Terry, so he's been in bands forever as well. And one of the bands that he was in while we were like playing was a band called Condolences. And he did guitar and vocals in Condolences. Okay. And it's very Title Fight. It's very like almost rip off Title Fight of like the early records, like Pre-Shed. And he just can hit those notes without trying, really. And I've been trying to like figure it out, because my voice is more clean, kind of like the Jake from Super Heaven, like the cleaner sounding guy. Like my voice is closer to his, and then Terry has like a Title Fight voice. And I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna be able to hit these notes like without blowing my voice out. So I'm gonna need something. And so Terry is the one that kind of like filled that spot. And the crazy thing is, like when you listen back to Lush, him in the chorus, it just kind of like glued it together. And we almost didn't put that there. Like some of these harmonies he came up with like on the drive to the studio. You know what I mean? Just like playing the song. Yeah. I mean, we wing everything. It's crazy. But so like, yeah, he just showed up and he was like, yeah, I was kind of hearing this. And then he like hits it. Like, yeah, that's sick, man. Let's try that. So a lot of stuff he just came up with, and I just kind of sat there, and me and Jose would just produce them on the spot. Like, okay, yeah, that sounded good, but can you try this? Or, can you hit it like that instead? And he's just a pro, man. He just, again, everyone in the band is like top notch at what they do. So I'm just lucky that I have musicians that can kind of pull stuff off when I have an idea.
That's awesome.
but like going forward, it really like opened my eyes to like harmonies, because I feel like the spots on Old Dreams that are like the best are the spots where I have my harmonies and Terry has his over top of mine, and it just kind of sounds like huge. And I didn't really think of those things going into the studio day one. So like now, like writing for like the future release, I'm definitely thinking of those things, and like I'm gonna dedicate like proper time to like writing harmonies for real. And I think that's gonna be kind of like the trademark kind of sound, is like hitting those things and just kind of building on top of what I know worked on Old Dreams. So I'm more excited for what comes next. I think it's going to be more dialed into what we're looking for. So Terry helps out a bunch. He's awesome.
Yeah, that song is great. It caught on like people's radars like very organically as well. But I think it just kind of speaks to the songwriting on that, and like it's just catchy. And it was cool to see people, liking that song.
Yeah, it caught me off guard. It really did. I mean, the demo for Sparing, like I just didn't push it as hard, and I just kind of just let it kind of fade out. But like music is so quick, and like people's attention spans are so, like they got to get it in, and it's almost gone the next day. So I was really surprised that people were sharing it, and like blogs were writing about it and stuff like that. Because I never expect those things, and it really it motivated me more to like, okay, no, you're making the right decision, and people are into this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You second guess yourself a lot when you're writing, stuff, especially from the hardcore world. You'll think of it when you're writing softer stuff, like I'm going to get clowned for this. Like, color, like I was like, I know people are going to hate Colorblind, but like, I love it. I'm going to put it out. And it's like, nah, they like it. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like I made the right choice.
Yeah. I know what you mean. You kind of like self-conscious of things being corny.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's so weird that it like exists. But I definitely know what you mean. I'm like always kind of aware of that, in whatever creative thing I'm doing.
Yeah.
Which I guess is like a positive and a negative, because you're like very self-aware, but sometimes it can be like too much.
I think you just got to go for it. I think you just like, don't be afraid, because, as long as you're into it, and like you're, if you're not your biggest fan, like no one's going to want to hop on board. So as long as you push it and you're happy with it, how it sounds, I think people are going to just be into it because you are too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And, I think it's interesting as well, because you mentioned Super Heaven earlier, and they went from, I guess, like an aggressive pop punk alternative type of band on their very early stuff, and then they kind of switched to that grunge sound, which came on Jar. But I thought that was an interesting reference, because you kind of hear some Super Heaven on the songs, and I was interested in your decision to kind of pull from that, as well as like, because it's a pretty big contrast, looking at Super Heaven Jar stuff to like, the starting line like Early November. But you kind of meshed them pretty well, so I was interested in like how that came about.
I think it was more, I didn't in the early years of Sparing, like that 2019, the first demo, I was definitely trying to sound like Daylight or Super Heaven. That was kind of like my starting point. Like I bought a bunch of pedals that sounded like them, and guitar amps that sounded like Daylight. And I was really trying to get that sound. So the demo, that's definitely what I was going for. And like Atypical was a song that was supposed to be on the demo, and I totally reworked it. So, but the intro riff, the really thick riff, was written in 2019. So that's why it sounds very Super Heaven-y, is because it was written at that time. And I just couldn't get it to work. I was stuck on this like ending that's not even on the song anymore. So that's kind of what that is. But I think I was just kind of trying to find where I wanted Sparing to go. I love Super Heaven stuff. I love Early November stuff. And I wanted to kind of find what I was best at writing songs in. I started to kind of hit a wall when it came to writing stuff like Super Heaven, where I just couldn't come up with something natural. I had played like pop punk bands and stuff in the past, and the first thing that comes to mind is like something like this, like a riff that you would hear more in a starting line, and not my brain wouldn't go to sounding like a jar riff. And I think it just like, I just didn't know what path I wanted the band to take. And like each day that passed by, the more I kind of understand, okay, this is the way I want it to go in the future. And it was just kind of working that out. And it just kind of,
Okay.
The songs kind of have a mismatch a little bit with like Lush versus Atypical.
Mm-hmm.
It works sonically, like when you like playing back to back to back. But I think Lush was kind of more where I see things going sonically.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's kind of cool to hear that and see how like organic that it was within the songwriting process.
Yeah.
But you're definitely right. Like when you listen back as a listener, you don't like, it's not jarring. Mm-hmm. So like you hear a difference in the songs, but it still works together. So I thought that was, since I heard the EP in the beginning, I thought that was kind of cool to hear. And also going back to Daylight, like they kind of transition on that EP, the difference in Good and Bad Dreams.
Yeah.
And I just like listened to that recently again, and I can kind of hear, them going from like the grunge to like, and still having that catchiness that Daylight had in the beginning. Not that they didn't get like less catchy or whatever.
Yeah.
But you can kind of hear like that transition happening. And I kind of heard that in like Atypical, for example.
Yeah. I think Daylight transitioning into Super Heaven, like to me, they kind of sounded like Basement and Title Fight, but that's what was out at the time. I mean, that's their same like roster of bands. And as they kind of like figured out their sound, they just built upon what they were working with. So I think it's a very similar situation. They just happen to do it on a very bigger scale.
Yeah. But I wanted to also bring this up too, because I thought it was really interesting. And I remember us talking about it on release day and leading up to it. But the new Coil and Standstill albums came out around the same, I think it's probably the same month.
Yeah.
And it was just like kind of cool to see because there's seems to be something happening with that Long Island sound coming back, and all three albums here at the same time, which is like perfect, like summer music.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to get like your thoughts on that. And like, I feel like it just kind of all happened like very surprisingly or like natural. I don't know where it came from.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I mean, so I guess I have mutual friends with the Koyo guys, just through like other hardcore avenues. I've never met them before, so like our first show is going to be with them, and I'm really excited about that. And 13th is actually playing with Standstill in October, so like that's going to be awesome to kind of like meet up with them as well.
Yeah.
But no, it's definitely cool to see. I mean, they are definitely a harder sound than us. I mean, I think some of that's just kind of, they knew what they were going for at first, and like I didn't really know yet, and I was kind of afraid to go all in with certain aspects of Sparing. Like you get kind of nervous that you go like full into like a pop punk sound or like an aggressive not hardcore sound. Basically, again, what we said earlier, if you're going to get kind of like pushed away from or like ostracized basically from the scene of sorts, and like seeing Koyo and Standstill really take off and be like accepted by the hardcore community really like makes me feel motivated to like put out something even better next. You know what I mean? So like, if anything, I think it's great for the scene and great for hardcore, but like thinking back, that's kind of how it's always been. I mean,
yeah,
you had bands like in the 90s, like H2O and Shelter, and, bands that were very hardcore adjacent. I mean, you've got, Youth of Today connections with Shelter. And that sound is, to me, that's as pop punk and hardcore as it gets. H2O record sounds like both to me. and Koyo and Standstill, and then like the new Sparing stuff. It's just an extension of what's always been there.
Yeah, that's a good reference point, I think. I mean, also like Civ.
Civ too. Yeah,
as well. But it's funny because my friends and I kind of have this joke, like, all the best pop punk is usually from hardcore kids, like at least like our favorite stuff, like The Movie Life or Taking Back Sunday, later Crime in Stereo. And I don't know why that is, but it always like works, even though the two sounds sonically are pretty different, but at the same time they're like are pretty similar. I mean, like I guess I would kind of credit Lifetime for that, to kind of like blending that sound initially.
Sure.
And but anyway, yeah, it's just always kind of cool to see hardcore kids taking a different avenue and like making like catchy pop punk music.
Yeah, it's hard to say, kind of, because like whenever I was super young, like middle school, that's kind of when Fall Out Boy started getting on the scene. So like Sugar We're Going Down or whatever. And I remember early on, I was like, how did these guys get into playing this music? Like, how because they got tattoos and they look like punk. And I'm like, how did they transition from like hardcore to this? And I was like, these hardcore kids are writing Dance Dance. And it didn't really make any sense to me. And then whenever I was in high school and I did the same exact thing, I was like, oh yeah, I see. I see. Like, okay, yeah, I understand. It's a natural progression. It's like, you just want to play hardcore, you want to write music with your friends, and it just kind of like, I don't know. It definitely is weird, but yeah, they did it, and now they're playing Super Bowls, and so definitely the hardcore kids are writing the best pop punk, and definitely because if the ones that do, it just sounds more genuine, and like even like Set Your Goals or something, like that's kind of got a hardcore sound to it as well, and
or Newfound Glory. That was a big one that I left out.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest one. Right? I guess Shai Hulud. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just it's a funny kind of gray area. They just kind of go hand in hand so well, and no one seems to really care.
Yeah, but yeah, I always thought that was like an interesting thing that happened, and the type of music that I listen to very often, that I began to notice.
It's got to be from like Black Flag and Descendants. It's got to be, they've always been like two
the
heads.
Roots.
Yeah. It's always been two heads of the same coin. I think it's like the same guys are in all the same bands, and they're doing the same things, and it's just natural. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I wanted to talk about going more on like the artistic discussion. For Lush, you directed that video. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about videography. Like, how did you pick up on that skill? I mean, with all of the, also along with videography, but like all of the social graphics that you've done, and like, I mean, people don't know this, but you made like a press kit when you sent to us, and it was like, when I landed there, I was like, oh, this is like thoughtfully designed, like everything is, where it needs to be and stuff. So I guess more of like design / video / art and everything. Like, how did that come to you, and like, what is your background with that?
I think it came more out of like necessity. Like I've always been very like DIY minded. Like I want to do things myself, and I kind of pride myself on doing things like without paying someone. And obviously you can't do everything, but I mean, I think it started like graphic design stuff. It started as far back as like MySpace. I mean, I was just making band layouts for my bands, and then like making flyers for shows that I was playing and things like that. So, and you just kind of the more you do it, the better you get at it. And running the surf shop, I think I do it constantly because I'm like making flyers and things for that. And, so when you're doing it from a business standpoint, I mean, essentially that's what a band is. It's a business. So I just treated it like that. And I'm pretty good at copying other people. So if I see something that looks awesome, I'll take a screenshot of it and I'll kind of put my own spin on things. And definitely with like the press kit thing that I sent you, I definitely got a lot of help from other people, like things that I knew that worked for more successful bands in our scene. Like this band Frontside helped me out a ton, just kind of letting me know kind of what worked for them. And, I'll take advice from anyone. So for graphic design, it was always just kind of just doing it myself. And just kind of self-teaching along the way. I'm still not perfect. I bet you're way faster. I'm pretty slow when it comes to certain things, but I'm better than I was when I was 16 years old. So that's
the graphics is definitely like great. I would think that you do that full time, and kind of hearing your perspective on doing it at the surf shop, it makes sense. Like I can see you doing that pretty often, but I guess specifically on video, although the two are like pretty similar, like visual avenues, video is like a whole different world. And like, because there's so much to think about, because you're thinking about the visual, obviously, but then there's audio along with it. And then you have to, create a storyboard, and then you have to shoot these specific shots that you have in your mind. And then aligning like the camera, and then figuring out lighting. And like, there's so much that like goes into that. I don't think people, really think about or notice, just because we watch TV and watch movies, and we just see it if you're kind of naive into, the whole world behind video. So that is just like, I was just like impressed about like with the video. And I mean, how did that go for you? Was it like pretty frustrating, or like, did you have an idea of like already?
Yeah. I mean, so I have done video stuff with the surf shop, but only like Instagram clips and, this and that, but enough to get familiar with Final Cut Pro with just editing software. And for one of my metal bands, I did a music video for the first time, and it worked out pretty good. Like I bought some cheap lights from Amazon, and I got a smoke machine and like, some stuff to make the atmosphere. And I was very surprised at how easy it came to me. And like, I mean, when I was a kid, like a lot of kids in the 90s, we would make home movies with a, camcorder. And I always had that kind of like vision for like things, and loving movies and cinema and stuff. Like I just really, I guess, grew to have an eye for things like that. Like, and we shot the clean break video for 13th. I did that one too. And that one went even better than the metal band one. And I don't have that great of gear. I just kind of just do things, play to my own strengths kind of thing, just don't push myself too hard, like if it's daylight outside, shoot in the daytime and just get the best takes that I can. And it really wasn't that much of a headache for the Lush video.
Nice. Yeah. Because with video, I've had like projects in school, and I've like, sometimes it goes like totally fine, but I've just had those experiences where like it doesn't go that fine. And like, for example, shooting, say you start at like, I don't know, 1 or 2 p.m. And you're shooting until like 5 or something, there's going to be an obvious like change in the lighting, and like, or like having to go back a second day, kind of like things that you come across that you probably didn't prepare for if you're not, if you don't do this all the time. Those types of things are like the things that would annoy me. Or I'm like, oh, it doesn't look right when I'm like editing, and I'm like have to like kind of change it in post a little bit, but it's just like extra work that, could have been avoided. So things like that is like kind of what I thought like maybe you would have experienced in shooting the music video. Because on top of that, you have to like line up the audio to make sure that everyone's like playing along with it. So I know it can be a challenge.
Yeah, for Lush, so we shot the all the B-roll, like the daytime footage with me and the person in the scene. It's my coworker Finn. He just has that kind of Nirvana look, and I'm like, hey Finn, you want to roll down to Wrightsville Beach and just walking around me real quick. And like, we shot that, I think in January. And it was just, we got a good day. It was just good lighting outside. And we just kind of walked around a bunch of places near Wilmington and, you know, skated around, had the sign, and just kind of got the storyline finished up with him kind of like marking his eyes off and like just kind of like pulling the flyers down and stuff like that. And the rest of it was shot in Raleigh on Super Bowl Sunday. And it was cold as hell out there. And we were out there a while. We were behind where my drummer works at. So we were behind a restaurant during work hours. It was like 12 o'clock in the day. And there's a library to the side of us. And there's like a window. And these little kids like, keep walking up and looking at us in the window. We got a drum set up out there in the back parking lot. And there was no power back there either. So like we had a car pulled up right behind off screen and just blasting the music. So like that was kind of sketchy. I was like, we're not going to be able to get this done. And we had kind of the drums were kind of like gimmicked with these pads or these tom like the covers, like the heads they look like real heads, but they are kind of fake. Like practice pads almost, but they are heads. So like the drums weren't that loud, but even with just a little bit of tingy sounds, you could not hear the drums at all. Like he couldn't keep time to his own click basically. And we kind of just had to do everything split up, you know, and storyboarded kind of what I wanted. And I took a lot of kind of visual cues from a Citizen music video, just kind of how okay, there's a drummer here and the guitar player is kind of in the screen. You can kind of see his hand. So I just kind of like I drew the drums and the guitar and kind of like took some screenshots. I was like, okay, that's a good starting point. And did everyone separate, and then just kind of got a couple decent takes with me in the camera because I was the one holding the camera for everything. I'm not in the shot. And honestly, I'm glad it looks seamless because you never know when the singer needs to be in the clip. So I kind of got lucky with the still frame. Like most of the video of me is on a stand. It's right on my face, and the movement is the people behind me. And you don't really see me moving that much. So we kind of lucked out with it like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's kind of what I was interested in, because I knew you probably have experienced something like that, like the car, for example, or like people in the outside like environment, like affecting what you're doing.
Terrible. I mean, and it was cold, and I don't know, some people like showed up on the side and they were just watching us. You know, I mean, this is like in a pretty bougie part of Raleigh. It was like Cameron Village, and people were just kind of watching me lip sync there. I mean, it was like, all right, here I go. But at that point, you're there. You only have a certain amount of daylight, and you just got to do it. It's like, well, if you don't do it now, you're not going to get it. So you can't be afraid. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And for the artwork, what was kind of the idea behind that, or the concept, and how was like communication with Ridge to like get it the way that it is now?
Yeah, man, Ridge is crazy. So I hit him up, and he was all on board with it. Everything was smooth. And then he like broke his arm skating or something. And so like about a month went by where I didn't have any communication with him. And I was like on Instagram, he was like having surgery on his hand. And I'm like, I don't know how he's going to do this Photoshop, man. I was like, I should just done this myself. And it turned out sweet though. I was excited with how it turned out. But initially I sent him like a mood board of like some album arts. So I had Daylight Jar on there just because I like the colors of that one. And then I had like the Promise Ring, had a Braid record. What else did I have? I think maybe a Texas, and Texas is the Reason, but just some. I really like that kind of overlappy design. Where there's kind of a picture here, but the picture's kind of flapping over, and I just kind of had this is kind of what I want. I just kind of want nostalgia. I want kind of that. I want you to look at it and kind of feel that 90s and 2000s kind of emotion. And I think he nailed it. I think initially the colors that he had were a little different. Like the font was black and it didn't really pop on the thing. And I think it was like might have been a purple too. Like the colors were totally different. And I kind of hopped into Photoshop and just started slicing sections out because I didn't have the layers. Yeah. And just found colors that I liked and was like, hey, can you change it to this? And he was like, yep. And then it was like, that's it, man. Because I really liked the little guy, like the boy kind of pointing and with the dog. Like that seemed like a memory. Kind of like a picture of a memory. So that was you nailed it with the nostalgia. That's exactly what I want. And you don't really think about it, but as soon as I kind of put it on a SoundCloud with the songs and the album art and saw it kind of in there, I was like, wow, okay, this is awesome. This looks perfect. But you never know what it's going to end up, being like until the finished product is there.
Yeah. I mean, album artwork is always kind of interesting where it can go very easily or you kind of have like a lot of like back and forth, like trying to figure out how it should look because it's literally representing a whole, piece of music. It can be going from one song to like 12 songs or, you have one image to kind of represent all of that. And obviously you have the layout if you're doing a physical album, but the front cover is what most people are going to see. And so, I mean, a lot of time and consideration goes into that. But when I saw the album art, I was like very impressed because yes, like the colors in the photos is cool, but like the composition of it, like where the type placement is. And like you have that, there's like a white strip in the middle and there's like another photo overlaying. So yeah, I think Rich did a great job composition wise with it because, giving someone an idea of like two photos need to overlap. They can overlap A and B or like C and D over and like and over and over. So like the way it's positioned with the texts and everything, it like works great. And it's interesting. It's not just like, okay, horizontal photo, text in the center. Like, you know what I mean?
It's always kind of random when you design stuff. Cause like I've done all the 13th album arts and stuff too. And the clean break single art is very similar. It's overlapping. Yeah. But I was ripping off a Ice Cube album art. So like I saw, again, it was the 90s. So like I just kind of went with that. But we got kind of lucky with the Ridge thing because and it wasn't like planned or anything because I had already hit him up like in December or something. And after that, the All Under Heaven thing came out and I think he did the art for that. And I was like, okay. Yeah. Like I think Jonathan's going to like this thing because it's going to look like it already is on the roster. It's like, he's got to love it. Like, it's a home run. Like, okay. Like as long as the songs don't suck, I think we're good. I think we might have this thing. So
and the colors are really great. Like the complementary colors as well. And so, it's just a really cool artwork. I really like it. And
kind of Nickelodeon though, like the orange, the orange tape really sealed the deal with the 90s because of those old Nickelodeon VHSs.
Yeah.
I'm going to find, I've got a bunch of old movies, but I don't think I have, I don't think I have one that's orange. I think I had a copy of Snow Day. Remember that movie, Snow Day?
Yeah.
And I feel like I've got it somewhere in a box and I'll take one of those pictures with the orange cassette and Snow Day if I can find it and put it on.
Yeah, I think I have one as well. I forgot which tape it is, but or it might be Monsters Inc. that I'm thinking of. They have like it's a blue cassette or like a VHS. But I used to have the Nickelodeon ones. They're all orange, like the Rugrats stuff.
Yeah, it's classic.
But I think we can kind of wrap it up with two questions focusing on music. So first question, specifically focusing on North Carolina. because I would say North Carolina is kind of popping right now, and it's exciting to watch from over here. But I mean, what North Carolina bands should people be checking out right now? And then on the other side, like just in general, what music are you listening to?
Yeah, you just need to move down here. I think that's it, man. Just hop on over. It does feel like it's popping off.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, so even like 5 years ago, it felt kind of like hardcore was kind of hard to kind of break through. There was a core bands, and if you didn't know the right people, you really didn't get the shot you might have deserved. And sometime around the time 13th started playing shows, that kind of changed. A lot of the older bands kind of just like faded out, and a new crop of bands kind of came to the surface. And so like all the bands that are like kind of 13th, sorry, got the worst tickle in my throat right now. A lot of the 13th bands, Fading Signal, No Longer at Ease, Soul to Keep, just all these bands, Eyes Wide Shut, which is Cam from 13th. He's in that too, and Sparing. So a lot of the members are kind of just mixing and matches, but the cool thing about the North Carolina scene right now is everyone is supportive of each other, and it's never really been like that. And it might have been a long time ago, but it definitely went through a kind of a dark period where no one was really putting on for each other. And I don't know why, but like now you'll have, as long as you're like a cool person and you're not, sketchy and you make good music, everyone's putting on for each other and supporting each other. And it's really cool to see, like, no matter what genre you are, like Sparing got accepted immediately. And there's a band, Nuclear Desolation. They're very like headbangy, Cannibal Corpse, kind of like tech death, whatever. And same, they're just like, they're not hardcore, but they're like accepted and people love it. And that's awesome to me. So like, there's just a better sense of community. And even like post COVID era, or first wave of COVID, who knows what's going on, but it's cool to see people just like helping each other out, sharing each other's stuff, not being afraid of supporting someone else. Like why not be supportive of someone that's younger than you putting out something cool? You know what I mean? Even if you didn't write it, it's just like, or it's something you don't really listen to that often. It's only good for the community. And Sparing's kind of in a cool little niche because there's a huge college, like indie rock scene in North Carolina. There's like a big festival called Hopscotch, and there's always been that kind of genres. And like, we're kind of being able to cross over into both worlds. We can kind of be in the hardcore scene. We can be in the indie rock scene and bridge the gap for that too. So I just see like a cool future for that going forward. And I hope to meet more people outside of hardcore and make more connections that way. So I'm looking forward to playing shows and stuff because hopefully I can network a little bit better. Another band that's on, that is like not a hardcore band, but they record with Jose as well. They're a band called Weymouth, and they're awesome. Just good guys. I mean, they've been in the scene for a long time, and they're writing really catchy, kind of poppy indie rock. And so definitely check out those guys too.
Yeah. I mean, just seeing that y'all's first show just got announced recently. I was looking at the lineup and it's just so like stacked. Like it's Koyo, Soulblind, Sparing, and Holy Figures and Fake Eyes. Yeah,
that's it.
That's just like amazing lineup right there already. Like,
I don't even know how we got on this. I had no connection with the booking, but so Bloody Loud is a hardcore, mostly promoter. I think the vocalist of Ends of Sanity is the guy that runs it, James. Mm-hmm. So he's always been really good to 13th, and I think that's how we had the connection. And I was like, as soon as I kind of got word that that's going to be the first show, I was like, this is exactly the people that I want to listen to Sparing. It was like Fake Eyes kind of has a good following in Charlotte. Holy Figures, I think this might be their first show too, but they had the New Morality zine connection. So I was like, instantly, that's going to be awesome. And it just seems like an awesome time, like with good bands that are not all the same. Like there's kind of like different sound,
very different,
sonically different, but like all very similar at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a really fun show to kind of see what North Carolina has, on the table.
Yeah. I wish I can be there. But when is that? What's the day people can go check it out?
Yeah, it is September 21st, and it is in Greensboro now at, I think it's a house show. I think it's a garage show now.
Oh,
so
sick.
It's going to be kind of sweaty and, hot. So luckily it's like late September. So maybe we can rock a flannel and not sweat our butts off, but I guess we'll find out. But, it was going to be at this other spot, but it got switched over. So shorter drive for most people. I think Greensboro is pretty close to, it's about an hour from Raleigh and an hour from Winston. So if you're in the area, come check it out.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And the house show is going to be even cooler.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous. I mean, this will be the first time I've like done this style of singing on stage, quote unquote stage, garage floor in my life. I've done like a hardcore front man type of deal in the past. So I'm used to being, all eyes on me, but it's been a while. And I hope I hope my voice is going to hold up. I guess we'll find out. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's pretty nervous. It's pretty vulnerable, like when you're singing.
Yeah.
It's different than yelling.
Yeah. You're being singing behind like a guitar or like a drum kit or whatever.
Yeah. So I hope people are into it and, take me, be light on me, be easy on me. It'll be my first time. So we'll see if it's good.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. It's gonna be a really cool show. There's a lot of, I love that it's like a mixed bill. Also because you get a little bit of everything, but a lot of the kids playing the music are, I would say, primarily exist in hardcore as well.
Yeah, Fake House has
always cool.
Magnitude is Fake House Connection, and then the Holy Figures guys, they've been in hardcore bands all up the East Coast as well. So it's gonna be awesome. Yeah,
for sure. And lastly, just like any other music you've been listening to, or any other things that people that you can like recommend to people to check out.
Yeah. The last thing I listened to, which I was cutting the grass and I had some headphones on, was The Police, which is like the 70s band.
Yeah.
Man, that record slaps. If you haven't gone back, go back. 1979, the one with Roxanne on it. That the snare is really, really good. It's really popping. But other than that, I've been digging back into the Deep Elm Records discography.
Yeah.
So like Appleseed Cat stuff. But I've been really jamming this Benton Falls band. I'd never heard of them before, and Deep Elm I follow on the Sparing page, and they were saying 20th anniversary of this Benton Falls record. So I tossed it on, and it's amazing.
For those who don't know, I would say Deep Elm is also one of those labels that are like, that should be talked about more. But they are an older, like 2000s, like they probably started in the 90s, I'm sure, but were really big. I would say most people know them from their emo compilations that they would do. Jimmy Eat World was on the first volume, I believe. Movie Life is like on the second or first. But anyway, definitely check them out, and you'll discover a lot of like bands that you probably wouldn't have heard of otherwise. And it's kind of like a treasure box, like when you first discover them. Like I mean, Appleseed Cast, yes, that's probably like the biggest band or most notable from that label. But I recently started listening to Cross My Heart. I also recommend checking them out. They sound like Texas is the Reason, late 90s, like, or even like Kill Holiday is probably another good reference. Anyway, but yeah, people should definitely check that label out.
Yeah, I think there's like 12 Emo Diaries comps, and it is like slam full of awesome stuff. That was like what I've been on shuffle now. That's a lot of material to get through. So like,
yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. And I'm pretty bad about listening or knowing that discographies exist, but not like going down the line, like from the beginning to end. And that's something I've been trying to do more this year. I've listened to a lot more music this year, and probably because of Sparing, I've just been like more like involved with local music and like digging back into the old stuff. But yeah, Deep Elm is kind of like where I'm at right now. But I kind of see Sparing kind of taking a lot of influence from bands like that, and kind of morphing our own sound into them as well, because they're not far off from like Early November. Like Benton Falls is very stripped back guitars. The singing's pretty light, but there's certain parts of the songs where you can hear the guy just like yell in the background on the background mic, and you're like, man, you start feeling it. They go into like a really breakdowny groove, but it's like the guitars are super clean, and it's like it's kind of off-putting at first, but then you're like, man, this is really, really good. And if I can kind of dial into that for the next Sparing stuff, I think I'm going to be kind of like on the right track.
Those compilations are so cool. I started Music for November, the Sunday Drive compilation. Because of those. Okay. You kind of see it in the artwork.
Yeah. Now I see it for sure.
Yeah. I kind of combined that with like, I found a Factory Records comp as well. So I meshed the two together. So they kind of have both styles.
I think the first like Sunday Drive thing I heard wasn't a November Music for November. That was definitely the first time I heard, because I tossed it on and I heard Photographic Memory, and that was the first one that like stood out to me. I was like, wow, this song's really, really good. And then like not long after his full length came out, and probably my favorite thing from this year still, like entire year, it's like so good. And there's so many good songs on those compilations. So yeah, your music, you've always been so good at like curating like good bands, like even digging back into the whole discography of Sunday Drive. Everything is amazing. Like I don't think there's one bad record on the whole discography, and that's pretty tough to do, especially from like when you were still in college, school and doing all that. So like, I don't know how you did it, but you pulled it off.
Thanks. Yeah, that means a lot. I have always had like this very particular ear for the type of music I like. And it just all kind of came along naturally, and it worked. So it's cool to, I do that as well. Like go back and listen to like our whole discography. And it's always fun to do, because I remember like what was going on at that time, or like working on that release and stuff. So yeah, it's cool.
You can definitely hear the eras though, like there's like bands that kind of sound like Balance or sound like Title Fight or something like that. And then you can kind of tell like, okay, I know what he was listening to at this time, because this is the band, he was like the sound he was going for. And then, like you'll go through like a hardcore phase, like every band's a hardcore release. I'm like, wow, you must be big into some heavy stuff in this year. So it's always cool to like listen back. After I know you, it's funnier to see kind of the progression of how the label's going. But in a good way.
Yeah, it's always kind of been all over the place from the beginning. I would say it's always kind of been a mixed bag, but I've just always enjoyed mixed lineups or like mixed bills. Like the shows that I would play when I was a kid, that was like a constant thing that would happen. And I always thought it was really cool because it allows you to meet, different people that you wouldn't have like at a straight up like hardcore show or like a straight up pop punk show. When you start like overlapping those worlds, I think it creates a stronger scene and community to kind of break those barriers down. And you look back in time, that was happening all over the place in the 90s. And like, that's probably like my personal favorite type of music, because like in the post-hardcore era and like / emo boom in like the mid to late 90s, you see like a lot of crossover there and like with all those shows. So yeah, anyway, I think it's really important for a lot of diversity in this umbrella of alternative music. Yeah,
for sure. I think that's why I'm excited that Sparing can kind of have a foot in both doors. Because it's only a positive for the community as a whole. So definitely understand that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, is there, yeah, I think that's about it, but I want to give you opportunity. I don't know if you want to share anything else or push anything.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, thanks for having me on the chat. I mean, going like with the as far back as like the studio for Sparing, like I kind of had Sunday Drive in my brain. Like I don't know why, but I definitely like had like this vision of like, okay, this could be on that. And like even from the beginning, me and Jose were talking. I was like, hey, I think I'm going to send this to a couple labels, and like one here's Sunday Drive. This one's going to be one. And we pulled up, Anxious Arms, and we pulled up some other bands that sounded like that. I was like, hey, this is what he's got going.
Yeah.
Can we pull something off like this sonically? He's like, yeah, we can do this. So even in the studio, I had my Sunday Drive hoodie. So I was just super stoked that that you liked it and gave it a shot and kind of believed in it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
It really does help out a lot because I listened back to the Numerality podcast with Nick and you, the first episode of this, and everything that y'all said just kind of resonated with what I thought Sparing could be. And I was like, okay, I'm going to send it out. And if I don't hear anything back in a month, I'm going to put it out. Cause you guys were like, if you're DIY, don't be afraid to just do it yourself. And, be afraid to fail and put on for yourself. So it was going to be out one way or the other, but I definitely have seen a better like reach and push just with Sunday Drive attached. So I can't thank you enough for that. But yeah, you can follow the band. Yeah, you can follow the band on Sparing. I think it's at Sparing Band on everything, Instagram and Twitter. Give us some Twitter love because we got a couple followers, not too many.
Yeah, I know Instagram's kind of the main one right now.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Facebook's no one really on there, but Twitter, but there's a lot of people that are tagging us on Twitter, like the blogs and stuff. Yeah. So like, I got to have one for that, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I also want to say thank you to everyone who's listened and to the Sparing release, and also everyone who has written about it, because we have had more people than usual, I would say. Write about the album, which always is like super meaningful to me because I know how time consuming that can be. Yeah. So anytime I see that, related to one of the albums that we worked on, it's always very meaningful. So shout out like Resonating, No Echo, New Noise. Like I'm sure there's like plenty more, but those are like the ones that are coming in my version online. So thank you for everyone who's listened and shared.
Yeah. I mean, everyone that's done good. It means a lot. Like I never expect one person to write about it, and then like Brooklyn Vegan was adding us in there with like some crazy names, and I'm like, this doesn't feel right, but like it feels good to be like included. But I mean, it just humbled me to put out the music and work harder for whatever comes next. So definitely thank you for anyone that wrote about Old Dreams. It means a lot.
Yeah. So thank y'all everyone for listening. I'm excited to hear, more music from Sparing, but in the meantime, keep an eye out for any shows happening soon. Hopefully y'all can see them live. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Thank you.